I mean, I guess if you want to give credit where it's due, you give credit to Jaylen Brown, who was a one-man wrecking crew in that second quarter because he dominated. Give him a lot of credit. He dominated. Joe Mazzulla did a great job of staggering the rotations where it allowed Jaylen Brown to really just be out there running amok against the Knicks. And it didn't matter what defense they had. Josh Hart's individual defense, hey, he gave it his best shot. Brown won that. Transition, which is where I thought the game really changed, especially in the second quarter, is that not only did the Celtics defense tighten up, but they then would beat the Knicks in a foot race, which we know is not the Knicks' best strength. And I thought that was a big key for the Celtics there in that second quarter. You know, he got his advantages in the cross matchups against Kolik. They found him on Kolik a couple of times. They got him in. They got JB in the pick and roll, exposed JB in his pick and roll coverages. And yeah, I thought, you know, that's really how that second quarter went. And then when you got into the second half, look, gave credit to Mikal Bridges. I thought this was the game that he needed to really emerge if the Knicks were going to have a chance, because Captain Clutch did not have the best. He had probably his worst game of the season. And then, you know, Karl Anthony Towns, for as much as he gave the Knicks, he took some away with some of the questionable decision-making. So Mikal Bridges did a good job. He poured in his 35, but, you know, you had Minot, you had Walsh, and the Celtics, you know, getting those 50-50 balls in the end, and that kind of kept the Knicks at bay, man.
Yeah, look, there was a couple of things that happened in this game. I mean, the high overarching things. Jaylen Brunson had a terrible night tonight. You just look at his stat sheet. It was just a non-Brunson-esque game. He went 6 of 21 from the field, only got you 15 points tonight. He did toss up 11 assists, so he was trying to play make, but his ineffectiveness when it from just shooting the basketball really impacted the Knicks. I mean, if you're talking about if he just plays the normal way that he does, man, on a regular night-to-night basis, even with how far the Knicks were down, even with Jaylen Brown getting 42 points tonight, the Knicks could have came away with this one and potentially won. But that isn't the case. As you mentioned, Karl Anthony Towns, I thought the biggest change was in the second quarter where, you know, they triple-teed him. He got stripped. He then goes on the other side, trips Jaylen Brown. You know, now you're talking about Mike Brown has to pull him out. I thought that was the momentum-changing part of the game after he was brought out, because as you see what Brown likes to do with that second unit, he likes to feature Towns, and Towns is doing a great job, man. This is what was so confusing. He was being featured with that second unit, and he was dominating. And then you just threw off everything that Mike Brown was thinking of, and now Mike Brown has to scramble and think of something else to patch now that you couldn't go back to Karl Anthony Towns for the remainder of the second quarter. So I thought that changed the game. And then at the end of the day, man, Knicks defense is just porous on all levels, whether it's guarding the three, whether it's guarding the paint. I mean, look, the Celtics weren't the, you know, prolific three-point shooting team that we've seen over the last couple of years. You know, they shot 32%. They went 13 of 40. However, you could not stop Jaylen Brown or anybody else when it came to scoring in the paint. And I know we're going to get to key stats in the night later on in the show, but when you start looking at some of the areas where the Knicks usually win, right? Just in this game alone, they lost second chance opportunities slightly, 16-13. They lost the points in the paint battle, 56-42. So for this, look, it's not New York's best performance outside of Mikal Bridges, but man, just a tough one, man.
For sure. And as you said, this isn't the typical Boston 3-point high octane arsenal that you're used to, but they get it gritty, and Brown sets that tone. And look, again, give him a lot of credit, man. He's strong, he's explosive, he uses his speed. There's not much that the Knicks can do to counter when he's in his bag that way, and then especially when he's finding his mismatches when he gets out in transition and plays fast, so that a set Knicks defense doesn't have even a sliver of an opportunity to slow him down. I thought that was just Jaylen Brown just being a much smarter player and a much more aggressive player. And you pointed it out, you know, they only shot 32% from downtown, but they got 56 points in the paint. And then at the same time, their defense was great. They forced a lot of boneheaded Knick turnovers, 12 Knick turnovers leading to 25 Boston points. Captain Clutch, Jaylen Brunson, a couple uncharacteristic ones, very late on a couple of his passes. He did have the 11 assists, but I thought some of the, like, he had some untimely turnovers. And then, Towns, 4 turnovers in his own right, whether it was the tripping to Jaylen Brown or, trying to go behind the back in traffic. We don't need that. We don't need that, man. And as much
well, there you go. There's a classic saying for you. You guys use one.
We don't need that. And look, the matchup was there for the taking for him to dominate everybody the entire night. It didn't matter if it was Kata. It didn't matter if it was Jaylen Brown guarding him. It didn't matter if it was the 19-year-old kid who had a good, Hugo Gonzalez, very scrappy. Gave Boston he was a big part of that second quarter, just giving them some energy and getting after it in the hustle stats. But there wasn't a matchup out there that can stop Karl-Anthony Towns outside of Karl-Anthony Towns. But again, in that second half, he was the one that was able to get buckets along with Mikal Bridges. So, it's kind of tough, especially when Brunson didn't have it going. But, where you mentioned where they did have success, Boston did in their threes, it was hunting both Brunson and Towns. And so with Brunson, every time they're getting the switch on Brown or, they're getting White on him. They had a couple of plays where they went to his direction with White, and White's a quick trigger 3-point shooter. He's going to shoot right over Cap. So as soon as they get that space on those screens, they're letting it fly. Karl-Anthony Towns, similar situation where he was kind of a sitting duck in the drop coverage against a good shooter like a Jaylen Brown, a good mid-range guy like a Jaylen Brown. But then there was a key play there in the fourth quarter, I believe, where they had Hauser out there on a empty side pick and roll with Towns. At that point, Hauser's not taking you off the dribble. Like, you got to step up on those. You can't be in the drops on those. So just little things like that really, really doomed the Knicks in. Nevertheless, again, Mikal Bridges' brilliance. They were able to cut the lead as small as 3 in that fourth quarter. Boston calls the timeout, but then they go back on a 7-2 run. So despite Mikal Bridges' brilliance, Boston was still able to counter with a 7-2 run of their own. The Knicks would come back. They get the 3-point play from Karl-Anthony Towns, and then Boston comes back down, and they get the 3 from Derek White. So it was that type of thing where it was just like every time they tried to pull themselves back, Boston would have an answer for every Knick for every Knick shot. So again, give credit to the Celtics for closing tonight.
Yeah, I hate having to give them credit, man, but they did a good job. I mean, where they really killed the Knicks, as I said, was in the paint. They shot 77%, CP. Yeah. 77% in the paint tonight. They went 36 of 47 when it came to twos. 36 of 47. So much different, as you mentioned, from what the Celtics are typically doing in the past. And look, I thought the Knicks were a little too reliant on their threes tonight. Out of 85 shots, they took 44 threes. I thought that was a little too much. Even though they shot the 3-ball well, I think they made it a little too easy for the Celtics to guard. They need to just make a little bit, just switch it up a bit, man. Give a little bit more variation. I mean, it was a little too all right, so it's either we got Bridges who's just going nuclear tonight. You're either giving it to Cat in the paint, but no one was able to do anything really in between outside of just Bridges. Like that, it was just really Bridges who was just shooting the mid-range.
Well, that's where it's a tale of two situations here where first quarter, they're letting it rain, they're letting it fly, they're playing fast, and the threes are falling. But once Boston starts barreling down on you and tightening up, what's your counter? And the Knicks, they get in those positions, man, where they get caught because Cap can't save you, Cat can't save himself, and they have nobody who can really attack the basket, draw contact, draw fouls, build some more rhythm inside before you can come back outside and shoot more threes. So I thought they got caught there in that second quarter because once the shots weren't falling, Boston, all the momentum went on the Boston side of the house. So, that's just one of those things where you live by it, you die by it. And then defensively, I was surprised they didn't try at least a little zone to slow Brown down and slow down the dribble penetration.
Yep.
They started putting 2 on the ball, but that was as a last-ditch effort, almost as a desperation effort late in the fourth quarter. But they didn't do much defensively, I don't think, to slow down Brown's rhythm, especially in that second quarter when, he was ripping and running. He finished with 42 points. So I didn't think there was much of an adjustment there to slow him down. They let him get into his bag pretty much all night. You had Mitch guarding him at sometimes. You had Brunson. They caught Brunson on the switches. Tough night at the
Well,
office,
yeah,
man.
very, very seldomly, unless Bridges got switched on to Brown. But like they really
Yeah,
left Josh Hart on an island with
they did.
Brown. And look, I get it. It's a tough decision for Mike Brown to make. You don't have the guy who would be guarding Brown on a regular basis, which is OG Anunoby. You know, he's out. Just resting up, trying to get back on the court. But yeah, if you're Mike Brown, you got to think like, and this is the conversation I was having with Bobby, last night. It's like I was thinking Bridges would get the assignment. It's like, do you want to go with more wingspan, or do you want to like? And there's also Josh Hart, who I said was going to get his shot at this too, because Josh will give you the physicality, Bridges will give you the wingspan, but you know, it's just a difficult matchup because as we saw, Brown will shoot over Josh Hart, and then if it's going to be Mikal Bridges or anybody else, he'll just barrel down the lane and just be physical, man. So there was no really easy answer for this. But with that, that's why I'm shocked that you didn't double him early as soon as he got going in the second quarter. You didn't do that in the third quarter. You didn't force Boston's hand to make an adjustment, and they just allowed them to be comfortable throughout the entire night. I don't know if this is because Mike Brown doesn't really trust the guys with that second unit. I mean, at one point we did have I never want to see this again, CP, a Kolick, Clarkson, Brunson, three
Yeah,
guard.
stuff,
I was like,
stuff.
why? No, I
Yeah,
don't want to see that. So like it was lineups like that where it was questionable for Mike Brown tonight. I don't know if he was just trying to experiment, if he's trying to give Josh like the confidence saying, hey, you did a pretty good job against Giannis. Let's see what you could do against Jaylen Brown. Much different animal when you got to face somebody that can shoot the ball. But I thought that for Mike Brown, this was not one of his better performances with the
yeah.
lineups and just like defensive schematics.
Didn't get too much from the bench tonight. Clarkson wasn't great. He was in his cardiac bag. Kolick, 2 of 4, 3 assists. I thought he tried as a backup floor general, especially in that second half. But, Kolick is who he is. You can kind of expect those type of numbers. Mitch, not a good night for the Block Nest Monsters tonight. Only 5 boards. I thought Boston did do a good job of keeping him off the glass. But, again, still looks a little bit labored out there. And, some of these matchups are just really not in his favor. And I didn't think so tonight. And he, got caught out on Jaylen Brown a couple times. Just wasn't a good one for Mitch. He had another one for Yabusele. Another one, literally, because he had 1 point and two rebounds for Yabusele. So Nick Bench didn't do too much to help him out tonight either, man.
31-11. That's all you need to know about the benches tonight, man. Boston Celtics bench put up 31 points. Knicks bench had 11.
Opposing teams, they just hunt the JB and Cat mismatch at the top of the key.
Yep.
Multiple times you got Cat and drop, his hands is down. Why Cat don't trap on the pick and roll? I don't know. He's going behind the back, dribbling into defenders. He's got his head down on one play where he's posting up. I saw the same thing early in the game, so there was a play with Matthews talked about just now, right? You got Cat 1 foot in the paint, Walsh all the way out there on the corner 3. Bro flies by. Press up on the corner. Earlier in the second quarter, Mitch did the same thing.
Yeah.
Foot was deep in the paint. He left the dude open on the wing. The play to end the third quarter, do you guys remember this? They sent Kolick to double Brown. Now you got JB to guard Minot and White, leaving White wide open for the 3. It's like boneheaded plays, man.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is this, if we run a double big lineup, opposing teams are putting JB and Cat, and you bring a Cat out the paint, right? Now Cat's out the paint, and whoever Mitch has to guard, they're putting that guy on the wing. So you're leaving the paint wide open. It's like we can't adjust. And this is the last point I want to make, man. Mike Brown is pissing me off, bro. Bro, we was down 5 points with 3 minutes left to go. He's dapping up the assistant coach, laughing it up. Bro, this is a serious game, man. You gotta go, you gotta be in that game, and you gotta have that dog in you, bro. This is the last thing, man. Giannis, if we didn't have to include Mikhail or OG to get Giannis, I would have made that trade. But they're the only two-way players along with Deuce that we got on this team. It's Cat and Brown that kills us game after game, man.
He made solid points, man. Look,
Yeah.
it comes down to situational awareness. And with Mike Brown, like I said, the biggest thing for me, man, was lineups tonight. I get that you're missing guys, but at some point, if your bench is not giving you anything, this is something that I had a critique of Tom Thibodeau last season, is that you got to just try something different. You never know what you're going to find if you don't try it. So I wish he would just do that a little bit more. Also, and like I said, I don't want to see any more of the 3-guard, Kolick, Clarkson, Brunson, especially a team against Boston that has multiple wings, guys that are capable of defending multiple positions. Just gotta match, just gotta match what they're throwing at you, man. So Those are my big things. And then, yeah, man, we know what we need from Cat, man.
Yeah.
We know what we need from Cat.
Yeah, again, the thing is, and when people don't understand, oh my God, how you criticizing the guy? He had 29 points. It's because the mistakes that he makes in these games, you see it in the future. You have the crystal ball in your hand, and you see these things happening in critical moments in pressure cooker situations. And that's what you had tonight. When the Celtics turned it around in the second quarter, it became a pressure cooker situation. And in that moment, when he's arm wrestling with the 19-year-old kid, and he's getting the best of him, and then he's arm wrestling with this guy, and they're getting the best of him. Those are the situations that we're talking about. The game got out of hand in the second quarter, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, they clawed back. And yeah, Mikal Bridges, you needed Mikal Bridges' Herculean effort to even have a shot at this thing. That's not going to happen every night. So, they only lost by 6, and yeah, you could point to 29 points, but it's the in-between, man. That stuff counts. It matters.
Yeah, the consistency of everybody, man. And, like, it's great when you get these, nuclear games from Mikal Bridges, but you can't just rely on that every single night. I mean, let's keep in mind, like, you had a Herculean effort from Mikal Bridges, and then you had a horrible performance from Jaylen Brunson. So, like, if you want to say those things even out. And then when you're talking about everything else, it's just stuff around the margins, man. Stuff around the margins. I'm not going to make it's not the end of the world, all right? Still much more basketball to go. We didn't have OG tonight. OG would have had the Jaylen Brown assignment, okay? But when you're thinking about if you're trying to prepare yourself for a championship run, and we talk about getting into good habits early, you gotta execute like you're in a championship situation, especially when you're competing against a team that's on the trajectory right now to being up there in the top 6, the way that they're competing right now, CP.
Hey.
So if you're going to come out there and execute like you want to go win a championship, especially in these games that you should be circling on the calendar saying, hey, I want to show the rest of the league that we're serious.